Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this spaceship Earth that we all live on. My name is Adamantium and welcome to this edition of AAUTZM Podcast. Now, just firstly, apologies for this podcast being a few days late. There were a few technical issues, and when I say technical issues, I mean that horrible planned obsolescence issue. The MP3 player that I normally use to record these podcasts started to malfunction on me, and I had to do some running around to try and get it replaced or something, and that didn't completely work out. So I'm using my headset again. I'm gonna be sorting it all out. It's gonna be fine, so don't worry, guys. Otherwise, my usual announcement for those of you listening to this on YouTube right now. My podcasts also exist on talkshoe.com. You can find a link to the call series on the video description down below. So just for those of you who wanted to listen to and download the full 60-minute podcast for free in MP3 format, you can do that there because they're completely free. I don't believe in charging for anything. I refuse to charge for anything that I do, even though I put a lot of time and effort into it. And I hope that you guys like the stuff that I do. But yeah, you can do that there. Other announcements for those of you who are in the know, then you'll know that ZDay is fast approaching now, being March 16th this year. The main event is going to be in Los Angeles again. I think that's going to be on the 17th, I believe. In London, the event is going to be on the 16th. I myself am going to be attending. If you want to buy a ticket, there's tickets still available. At the time of this recording, that being the wee hours of the 8th of February, there's 97 tickets remaining. If you go to zdayLondon2013.eventbrite.co.uk, you'll find the tickets there. The tickets are ludicrously cheap this year. There's something like £7.29 or something. The actual event itself is going to be at the Keyworth Centre Events Theatre at the London South Bank University. And my guess is that it's a much cheaper venue than the Friends Meeting House in Euston, so it's probably why the tickets are so cheap as well. But speaking of ZDay, I'm also hosting my own event in Maidstone. That's going to be on March 9th. I've deliberately organised it for a week before because I want to go to the London event as well. I don't want to miss it. But yeah, that's completely free, and it's going to be on, as I said, March 9th, from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Old House at Home pub in Maidstone. It's going to be up in the first floor function room. As I said, completely free, no tickets or anything. It's just a good thing to, it would be a good idea to maybe buy a drink at the bar, even if it's just lemonade, as what I'm going to be doing. But yeah, that is that. But also, speaking of events, the weekend just gone, me and Jim Phillips went to Eastbourne, and we were giving some presentations and answering questions there. In addition to, because Jim brought his 25 slide Venus Project exhibition, and we were talking to people like all day there, so that was really, really cool. I've just started work on the edits of the footage for both those presentations, because it's going to take a bit of a while to get them done, because there was like two different camera angles, and I'm trying to get this edit the slides in as well, and it's just going to be very complex. I mean, I can completely understand how long it took Jason to get up the edits for last year's ZDay event. So, Jason, if you're listening, I know what you mean. I know what you're feeling, dude. I feel your pain. Anyway, but yeah, that was absolutely brilliant. And in fact, Michael, from Eastbourne, the guy who asked us to come down, he's actually, starting up an Eastbourne chapter for the Zeitgeist movement now. So that is absolutely brilliant because, well, it's mainly because, he's wanted to start a chapter for a little while. And also the feedback that we got from, the event where me and Jim came down, it was so brilliant that he's just like, right, yeah, I'm going to start a chapter. So, that's good. But yeah, that in of itself, that really got me thinking, it really got me thinking about how we can actually orient, ourselves in terms of events and in terms of a new project that we can undertake, and I've called it the Buddy Project. Now, I've spoken a little bit about this on Facebook, and I'll probably do like a more elaborate video because I've got a lot to get through on this podcast, so I won't have time to get a lot into it. But basically, what it is it's an idea for anyone out there who, if you're either a TZM advocate yourself, or, just by yourself, like, maybe if you're the only person in your local area that's into it, or if you have like a very small chapter, or if you have like a chapter that's like on its own in like a vast island of no chapters, like, if there's like a huge expansive space between your chapter and any other chapter, here's one thing that you can do, right? Buddy up with someone in a neighboring chapter, right? Even if it's like for myself, I headed up the Maidstone chapter, and I teamed up with Jim, and he's from the Watford chapter, and we both decided to team up and go down to Eastbourne, and we held an event, and therefore, as inspired by our event and the feedback that it's generated, an Eastbourne chapter has now been born. Right? So how about if people team up with like someone, or maybe even a group of people from a neighbouring chapter, and together you can organise an event at either your chapter or their chapter, or maybe in another location where maybe there isn't another chapter, but there are people that are interested. Maybe we can either rejuvenate, dormant chapters. We can re-energize existing chapters. We can create new chapters, or we could rejuvenate our own chapters or someone else's chapter. Let's think about this, because for me, I actually like this idea of maybe going round to different chapters, and I mean, not just, putting your input in and saying, come on guys, get your act together. Because I can understand if you're a chapter and, especially if you're a young or small chapter, it's hard to get off the ground. So, it's not just, giving them a little shake and saying, come on, get to work sort of thing. But also you can visit other chapters and find out, really interesting things that you can do. There may be brilliant things that you can learn from other chapters, so, but yeah, there's that. I won't go on, anymore because I've really got to get on with the content of this show. But essentially, yeah, this is, I've called Conversing with the Critics Round 2. Now, this particular exchange took place on the BBC Radio 2 Facebook page, and the topic itself was about the IMF and austerity, It was basically the IMF saying that Britain has to scale back on its austerity to promote growth. Now, my first comment, well, most of my first comment was actually read out on the air, but also for a reference, there's 4 different individuals that I interacted with, here that I'll, but I won't name names. I'm just going to call them Person A, Person B, Person C, and Person D. Now, now you got that reference, make sure you pay attention, because it might get a bit confusing later on. But yeah, I'll, starting with my initial comment, part of which got read out on air. Can I ask what any of these economists, bankers, or politicians mean when they say growth? Do they even tell us? Essentially, they mean more monetary expansion, thus more inflation and more debt. That is what they mean. So how can we use debt to get us out of a problem that debt got us into? Our anti-economic system operates on a fantasy of infinite growth on a finite planet. Can anyone tell me how that is sustainable? Now, Person A says, Adam wants us to be communists, which is good for people like him, lazy people, as they get to take advantage of others' hard work. I respond, China is a communist state, correct? And they use a monetary system, correct? I rest my case. I can understand someone like you who projects any betterment of our lives as communism. That's called a straw man fallacy. I don't advocate communism. Neither do I advocate socialism, anarchism, capitalism, or any other ism that uses a monetary system. The opposite to monetaryism is not communism, it's sustainability. As long as we use the finite resources and technology intelligently to provide an excess abundance of the necessities of life for all humanity, that is a true economy. Can I ask just how much growth can you sustain on a finite planet? A Person B comes in. It's intellectual debt. How about saving a few billion by not giving aid to countries outgrowing us on GDP, India, China, etc. Also funding corrupt African nations by default. Yes, cap benefits, but cut taxes on the workers. Encourage growth in employment, increasing tax income. It's not rocket science. P.S. How about reintroducing national service as an alternative to higher education? Learn a trade. I respond, if you, me, and a bunch of other people were on a bus, and that bus was heading over a cliff, do we A, jump the hell off the bus, or B, squabble over where we're going to sit? By advocating measures of the system, you are not solving anything. Additionally, have you thought any of your solutions through? National service to replace higher education? Then again, you won't learn to be a banker, politician, or pope in the army, so I can kind of see how you would even pipe up with that. Person B responds, as an option to further education, not replace it. Have you read my post properly? I respond, to remind you, you used the words, and I quote, as an alternative to higher education, end quote. That's not proposing national service as part of higher education. You have still not shown why that is a viable option. Person B responds, okay, that's just to delay younger people into the employment market, but they all will either have a qualification academically